everybody, and welcome to Frank About Health. Today is September 26th, and it is the final Thursday of September. If you all remember when I came back from my long hiatus, I came back with Karen Ross, and we talked about healthy aging because this was Healthy Aging Month. And then last week we had an interesting conversation with Evan Messman as we were discussing about how to use your mind cognitively and use it as a way of focus and inspiration and to get out of the suck zone and then give forward into the learning zone. Well, I thought that today it would be me, myself, and I presenting all of you my inspiration for why I launched Frank About Health 3.5 years ago, and why an upcoming documentary on that whole process will soon be released because it will be reflective of how this podcast, Frank About Health, has enabled me to become a true healthcare advocate, both personally and professionally, to all of you out there. Now, there had to be some inspirations, not just the health problems that I've been continuing to find solutions for. And I do have prior experience in the entertainment industry. So I can say that during the COVID lockdowns of 2020 and 2021, I got lost in a lot of binge watching of medical programs. So today's episode is called Inspiring Medical Shows. The reason why is very simple. If it inspired me to become an advocate during the time of COVID and beyond, and it allowed me to meet many different types of people, professionals in the medical professionals, other advocates, other people that have became my co-hosts, as well as develop an ongoing relationship, or rather reignite an ongoing relationship with Sam Leibowitz to come back to talkradio.nyc and bring Frank About Health to the airwaves so that I can show my inspiration and hope that it inspires you all. So the two particular shows that I was doing a lot of binge watching during that time were Grey's Anatomy, courtesy of ABC and Netflix, and at the same time, MASH. You know, I am of the MASH generation in terms of my age, but there was a lot to learn from that program when I watched it the first time on CBS. And when I watched it during the COVID years, I had a different perspective being older, but it truly was an educational platform unto itself. So, based on those two motivating shows, I basically wanted to go ahead and talk about 10 of the most inspiring shows on television and currently on streamers that maybe if you're already watching them, great. So you'll know about what I talk about during the hour in terms of the content. But if you don't, hopefully I would have brought those networks more viewers, especially if you want to learn about particular themes that concern you. I don't know if I can issue a disclaimer because, again, I'm going to be talking about programming that already is on air or has been canceled or has left the airwaves, but they have left a lasting legacy. But I can say that all of the information is copyright protected, so I'm not going to be showing any collateral. I'm not going to be playing any of the theme music. I'm not going to be showing any of the YouTube footage because I don't want to inspire any kind of litigious behavior. I just want to inspire. And of course, help all of you out there who are viewers of these programs to become your own healthcare advocate. Of course, you know, all of you remember Maurice Zelkovich. He's been on the show several times, and he's taught me how to use Perplexity. So I decided to ask Perplexity, what is the purpose of medical programming? So I think I'll start with that. And then we'll spend the remaining time talking about those 10 particular shows and see what you take away from it. And if any of you out there are watching us on LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitch or even Facebook and have any questions about the shows, even if they're pop culture oriented, hey, shoot them away. I'll be willing to answer them online. In some ways, it's like sharing gossip with a fellow viewer. In fact, I had thought about bringing Karen to the show today, and I asked her, but due to a scheduling conflict, she couldn't make it. So, but she'd give me some ideas of some of the programming to share with you all, and more on Karen later on. So, what Perplexity told me when I asked it, what is the purpose of medical programming? It came up with four nice answers, and I think I pretty much identify with all of them. Number one, it provides entertainment. It provides dramatic and engaging storylines that captivate audiences and prioritize entertainment over complete accuracy. So there are shows that are a little bit over the top, and that medical situation truly wouldn't happen. But then there are shows that have actual medical consultants on staff to hone in on the accuracy because their main purpose is option number two, which is to provide education. These shows can inform viewers about medical conditions, procedures, healthcare challenges, sometimes encourage interest in medical careers. And I can say Grey's Anatomy is one of those shows. The other third reason for medical shows on TV is the influence on perception. I've been known to say perception is everything. All we hear and see, especially during a time of COVID, is what everyone else sees. You can't really differentiate if you don't have your own resources to really further the research and try to verify what you're hearing. However, thanks to social media, thanks to AI, thanks to podcasts like Frank About Health, I try to be as accurate as possible. So I want the perception to be a takeaway of now that you have some understanding of what me and my guest of the week has discussed. If you want to learn more, please go out there and research more. We don't want to provide misinformation, but we're not going to be providing detailed information in an hour's time. So it is always worthy of us to influence the perception to seek more health related information, especially if you're undergoing one of any of the problems that we sometimes discuss. And finally, cultural impact. Our society has undergone so many challenges, especially the last year unto itself. I'm not going to engage in political conversation during the hour, but I am going to say that when you see so many changes going on with leadership in Congress or in office, when those of you in New York City saw some changes with our mayor today, it can create a nerve-wracking environment. And so what medical shows do provide is a balancing act. It calms you down, especially when you see reality testing going on. And I think the best thing I could say about that cultural impact is sometimes it motivates you to become a fighter for healthcare. It motivates you to go to medical school. It motivates you to write a song about it. I mean, it just creates impact on those that are keenly aware on our health and wellness and really want to do something about maintaining it, especially during crazy times. Now, looking at the clock here, I'm halfway through section one. So I think what I'm going to do for the benefit of technology and seamlessness is I'm going to show you the first three shows that I want to talk about in this section alone. They're not the most influential shows, but they form a foundation. And I'm using my phone. Hospital. Then, as I said earlier, MASH. And finally, well, ER. Now, the reason why those are the first three I'm going to talk about is stemming from the fact that General Hospital, first and foremost, is the oldest show on TV, and it is also a soap opera. It began April 1st, 1963, and after 61 years, it's really more of a spoof, in my opinion, of what kind of drama can you get involved in. I mean, you have a mob boss as a family member, and then you have people who thought they were related who end up falling in love, and you have all these other situations that make daytime drama. But isn't it interesting how in the 80s and maybe even the 70s, three networks at the time had 16 soap operas on the air. Today, there are only three. And the only one on ABC, the longest daytime drama still on the air, is General Hospital. Because no matter what's going on the soap opera, everything reverts back to the hospital, especially when during the situation or crisis that's going on, surgery has to be performed, a transplant has to be undergone, or maybe there is some other situation that everyone is gathering to just see what they can do to help and support each other. Again, it is a basis, it's a foundation. It doesn't mirror real life, but when it comes to the healthcare topics, they try to discuss them in reality with medical advisors and hopefully give you all information out there, especially if you know family or friends or other loved ones that are suffering from them. So the conditions that are most recently Emmy Award winning on General Hospital include mental health issues like bipolar disorder, Alzheimer's disease, infertility and surrogacy, and even now they're undergoing a transplant, trying to find the transplant recipient who happens to be the brother of Luke and Laura's daughter, Lulu. Now, I have been watching it, but I actually was preparing for the show while watching it today. So it was inspiring me to talk about it. If any of you remember, 1981 was the big famous Luke and Laura storyline. They got married, and I think 1/3 of the country saw it. I guess maybe that's partially the reason why that soap opera continues to remain on the air versus the others. But there you have it. General Hospital is like a foundation. However, as I grew up through life, I started getting involved in MASH, based on the movie of the same name. It lasted 11 years, and everyone in broadcasting should know, and probably does, that to this day, it is the most watched series finale in history. February 28th, 1983, when 120 million people saw the show, 2.5 hour final movie. And at that point, our country only had 250 million. So that kind of indicates the percentage of the viewership that night. I can tell you, however, that what was very profound about MASH in particular was its main star, Alan Alda. Alan Alda not only was the actor on the show playing the character of Hawkeye Pierce, but he was the director, the writer, the producer. He won 34 Emmys, or rather the show did, I'm sorry. I think he won only 12. But yet, he would always be, in the later years, turning the show from a comedy drama to a dramedy. And everything got serious towards the end, where they were watching the end of the war, but he was going through PTSD. He tried to kill himself. He actually, at the same time, was suffering from traumatic symptoms over being drowned as a kid. And there was the time when they had a 30-minute episode with a clock on the corner of the screen as a guy was trying to, well, he was holding on to his artery in the heart to save his life while waiting for a transplant from a dying patient. And that was all documented in the medical journals and things like that. So that's the kind of show that if any of you out there, not for the issues of war, but are in the issues of dealing with emergency trauma, want to learn the quick thinking and the techniques, and if you have inspiration to become a surgeon, I would recommend it highly. Now, I think we're headed for our first break. I did want to talk about ER. The best thing I could tell you is that it is one of the shows that really boosted the career of George Clooney. It lasted 15 seasons, I think from 1989 to 2004. And simultaneously, it was at that time the longest viewed show until recently, and we'll get more on that later. So please stay tuned as I go through the next set of shows that have been inspiring, especially in the medical field, right here on Frank About Health, on talkradio.nyc, and on our social media platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, and Facebook. We'll be back in a few.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
If you don't have your health, what do you really have? It's time to feel good in your body and shift from struggle to ease. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul, where we explore the sacred wisdom of your body while you sit back, relax, and go on a journey of self-discovery. Join me every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to awaken your heart, transform your well-being, and unlock a deeper understanding of yourself.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. As you all know, I started talking about General Hospital, MASH, and ER. And those were three shows that inspired the entire audience out there to create a foundation, to create change, and ultimately, like in the case of MASH, to create social impact. Now I'm going to talk about three other shows that are inspiring to educate specific differences, specific healthcare challenges that they really wanted to hone in on. So for those out there who are interested in becoming a specialist in a particular medical field, watching these shows may be very helpful, especially if the field that they talk about inspires you. What I can say is that I've gotten inspired by Karen because of a show that I've never watched called Chicago Med. Very fitting because she's from Chicago, but it is on NBC, and I have an entire blurb about it, which I think all of you out there might be interested in watching the program as a result. The other show I'm going to talk about is Million Little Things, which is no longer on the air. It actually had its finale 2 years ago. And then finally, I'm going to talk about The Good Doctor, which also is no longer on the air. Its series finale was last May. So, what I learned about Chicago Med, which I think is very inspirational, is that the medical drama, obviously taking place in Chicago, is inspired by real-world issues and has consultants to make it look as real as possible. Here are some things about the inspiration. First, it's located at the Gaffney Medical Center, or rather that's the name of their fictional medical center, and it's inspired by Chicago's Rush University Medical School, but most filming takes place in California, as they all do, or Canada, depending on the show. It definitely uses consultants. Its medical expertise, played by the Dr. Orrin Gottfried, that's the lead character on the show, is an academic neurosurgeon and is consulted on the show like The Good Doctor, which we'll talk about a little later. Its relevance is about the world that we are dealing with today. And in many cases, we're talking about declining mental health and neurological health based on the different traumas that we've been seeing in our country and with COVID and with other things that continue to go. And some of the themes also involve loneliness and learning to let others in. So there might be an aspect of the show, again, I haven't watched it, but in researching it, it looks informational and it looks like it could really be healing, especially if you're looking for ways, like Evan said last week, to be able to allow the challenges that you need to go through happen so you can go into the learning zone instead of letting the fear take over whatever is preventing you from moving forward with your life. So I would have to say that the one difference that Chicago Med is focused on is mental and neurological health. Million Little Things is a very interesting show because it dealt with a guy that was the patriarch that on day one, the pilot episode, killed himself. And it completely blew up the life of his family and friends around him into a million little pieces. Or in essence, the title of the show, Million Little Things. It lasted for 5 years on ABC, and its main focus was to deal with the relationships of the people he left behind, the interrelationships, how they were helping each other during health crises, how they were helping raise their children, how they were basically trying to understand what it's like to become the breadwinner when you have spent most of your time trying to keep the children happy and healthy and warm while your husband was doing the work. Now, the main issue or the main difference that this show focused on was that of cancer. And basically, in the first pilot episode, there is a leading character and his co-star. I don't remember their names right now, but again, maybe for copyright issues, that's a good thing. I can say that they both had breast cancer. There is male breast cancer. And the point is when the series ended, that's what he died from after it had already gone into remission. And he lived his life for the 5 seasons and was able to heal the fracture that happened into A Million Little Things when that patriarch killed himself. He ended up raising another generation of people that he left behind. So it wasn't a medical show per se, but it had a medical narrative. And it was one that I would highly recommend you can watch on Hulu or possibly on some of the other streamers. And finally, The Good Doctor. As I said, The Good Doctor no, I didn't say this yet. It was filmed in Vancouver, but yet it took place in California. And the main thing about this doctor is that he was on the spectrum. In fact, I think it was just autism. He became a very successful doctor, though, and remembered literally word for word the names of all of his patients that he had taken care of during the series finale. Now, I look at that show as educating people how to live with that neurodiverse aspect of his character. Like I live with epilepsy, but he was successful and he even developed a relationship and a family. And he proved that living with autism was actually maybe his gift to heal others. So, as I said again, Chicago Med helps you look at the emotional and neurological and psychological aspects of relating with each other. Million Little Things mainly dealt with the theme of cancer and in the initial episode, suicide. And The Good Doctor was all based on autism pretty much as a superpower. So they're inspirational, but because of the actual health issue that they were trying to emphasize throughout the series. So there goes my next set of shows, all based on not creating impact so much, but creating awareness and education on those particular ailments, depending on the show, so that any of you who might identify with it could learn from it and probably engage in your own superpower, like in the case of The Good Doctor. I can say, though, I'm guilty of not watching Chicago Med or The Good Doctor, but I did see the series finale. I always watch all the series finales of the shows. And Million Little Things, I did watch that. I thought it was it was like a book. I would highly recommend it, even if you're not interested in healthcare. So CBS carried The Good Doctor, ABC carried Million Little Things, and NBC carried Chicago Med. Now, since Million Little Things is no longer on air, neither The Good Doctor, I would have to say that you could probably find The Good Doctor on Paramount Plus, and you could find Million Little Things on Hulu or Disney Plus. And I think that's basically it. I can say that the next segment of the show is going to be talking about inspiration for the purposes of educating those on healthcare. And in most cases, when I talk about these shows in segment 3, maybe you'll be inspired to actually go to medical school. I know I was, but for me, it's an issue of affordability, you know. And plus, I did become a professional caregiver for my father, my mother, and my cousin. And I also became licensed by Cornell University to become a public advocate during the COVID-19 pandemic in conjunction with New York State. And of course, I launched Frank About Health. So I can say that those first 6 shows that I've mentioned definitely inspired me to become a healthcare advocate and to have a platform about it. I think that's pretty much it. And I know we have more to talk about. So I think I'll take an early break for now, and we'll have more time in segment 3. So, ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned as I'm talking about inspiring medical shows right here on Frank About Health, both on talkradio.nyc and on all our social media platforms. We'll be back in a few.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Were you an essential worker during the pandemic? If you needed to learn stages of epilepsy, did you depend on advocates? Did you use new innovations to cope with mental and neurological issues? Maintaining high quality of life and keeping good mental health are what we all strive for. I'm Frank R. Harrison, host of Frank About Health, and each week top healthcare influencers, professionals, and innovators answer these questions and more. Stay tuned on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on talkradio.nyc, and I will continue to be frank about health with all of you.
If you don't have your health, what do you really have? It's time to feel good in your body and shift from struggle to ease. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Tripp, your host of Nourish the Soul, where we explore the sacred wisdom of your body while you sit back, relax, and go on a journey of self-discovery. Join me every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to awaken your heart, transform your well-being, and unlock a deeper understanding of yourself.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back. This segment, and I'm glad I took an earlier break because maybe I have more time to talk about it. It's kind of like my special segment, and it's all about Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy and two of the other shows that I'm going to show you in this segment are, I think they kind of cross-pollinate each other. And it's because of the big impact that this particular program has had, not only on the healthcare profession, but in terms of our cultural challenges that we've been faced. It has identified with them as much as possible, with a little flaws here and there. But that's what I'm going to at least speak about in the next section. Out of courtesy, I will show you the title cards for each. Obviously, Grey's Anatomy, right there. Its first spinoff, Private Practice, and New Amsterdam, a rival show on NBC, RIVAL. Now, the thing is that, let me just talk about New Amsterdam first and foremost, because I took a look at that show as a copy of what Grey's Anatomy was doing. Of course, there are New Amsterdam fans out there that may have loved the show, and I enjoy it because it definitely had its moments when I saw it. But it's interesting how when Grey's Anatomy was created, it took place in Seattle, in the fictional Seattle Grace Hospital, which eventually, over time, became Grace Sloan Memorial. And I can tell you, I visited Seattle 2 years ago, and I went to the site, and it doesn't look anything like it because it is filmed in Vancouver and in LA, 2 studios. But yet, the truth of the matter is that Shonda Rhimes, the creator of Grey's Anatomy, was interested in writing about a television show that kind of mirrored General Hospital, with a little bit of lacing of MASH and its real hard-hitting issues, controversial in nature, and trying to find medical solutions for specific problems. But at the same time, it had all the convoluted mess of a general hospital, meaning that it was trying to do what it can to really impact you and educate you and show that life is messy. And your way of participating in the show is by doing what you can in your own life to help or prevent that same problem from happening to you. Or at least, again, these are my views. This is what I took from it. If any of you out there agree or disagree, by all means, write to me at frankrharrison1 gmail.com. Now, Grey's Anatomy was very pun oriented. In fact, they were famous. The headshot I showed you was of its lead star, Ellen Pompeo, who plays Meredith Grey, and Sandra Oh, very successful independent actress in film, who played her person. My person became a buzz phrase. Her person, that Dr. Christina Yang. Now, essentially, the two of them were thick as thieves in the first 10 seasons of the show. And they went through internship and residency and fellowship together. And you saw them both try to deal with all the controversial aspects of both of their relationships. If everyone knows the actor Patrick Dempsey, he played the character of Derek Shepherd, or McDreamy, as he was known. And then he had a wife named Addison Shepherd, played by Kate Walsh, who ended up in the spinoff of Private Practice. Meanwhile, Meredith, to this day, tonight is the 21st season premiere, is on that show still. But obviously her character has evolved. And yet, from that point, in 21 years, we have seen every issue known to man, including Alzheimer's disease, which her mother suffered from. It turned out that the man that she had an affair with ended up being her residency director, and not to mention the father of her half-sister, born by her mother and Richard Weber. Now, of course, that's the general hospital dynamic. But yet, it was interesting to see how Meredith was able to accept all of those challenges, incorporate them into her life, and work with them to be able to live as much of a high quality of life while also become a successful general surgeon. There was also the issues of using HIV vaccines to cure life-threatening problems, deactivated HIV. There was the COVID season 17, where every episode dealt with, will Meredith, who got COVID, will she be dying, and will this be the final year of the show? And it was also an opportunity to bring back all of the former cast members that had been already killed off the show through a dream that she was having while she was in a coma. So it was a retrospective year, it was an educational year, and it also let ABC renew the show for 2 more years after that. So I can tell you, in the first 10 seasons of Grey's Anatomy, there were as many as 20 million viewers. Now I think it's sustaining with 3.5 million viewers live, and then a total of 8 to 9 million after they've streamed it. You know, so I guess that's today's broadcasting world. You can survive on the network if you have more of a streaming audience than you do a live broadcasting audience. After all, that's kind of the model of what podcasting is. But Grey's Anatomy has been very educational. In fact, the statistics are so that about 30 to 40% after season 9 enrolled in medical school, 30 to 40% of females enrolled to be surgeons, enrolled to be doctors and specialists in the fields of neuropsychology, in the fields of cardiac care, as well as even obstetrics. Now, I find that inspirational unto itself because indirectly, I kind of felt like I was attending medical school. Yes, there were the dramas of people going to bed with others that they shouldn't have, or possibly driving off a cliff and accidentally almost killing your best friend, or not to mention them finally killing McDreamy when he got hit by a truck while he was saving the life of an entire family that was in their own car accident. It was controversial, but it was very engaging because you almost felt like you were part of their family. So Grey's Anatomy has that family dynamic, and I give credit to Shonda Rhimes for creating all of her shows in that vein. If you are a Shonda Rhimes fan, you probably have heard not only of Grey's Anatomy and Private Practice, but you have heard of Scandal. You have heard of For the People. You have even heard of the Netflix Inventing Anna after Anna Delvey. Doing my plug, she's now on Dancing with the Stars. But the point of the matter is that, oh, there's Bridgerton. Let's not forget that. Shonda Rhimes basically tries to talk about real issues, whether they're legal dramas, whether they are medical dramas, or whether they're cultural dramas based on books written in the past, like the case of Bridgerton. But it's not about Shonda Rhimes so much as it's about the content that Grey's Anatomy continues to provide. And there is one challenge that they did face, and that was one of the characters, his name is Jackson Avery, has a mother played by Debbie Allen named Catherine Avery, who married Richard Weber, and she ended up buying the interest in Gray Sloan Memorial Hospital from the Harper Avery Foundation. Again, if none of this makes sense, this is worth of watching the show. She ended up with a condition of a spinal cancer that was inoperable and that statistically only 3% survived. And it was given as a narrative by the medical show writers. And as a result, because of the surgical magistry of Derek's sister, Amelia Shepard, who came from private practice, by the way, she was able to survive with a little bit left remaining that could not be removed, but it was in remission. Well, lo and behold, there was a litigation on that when they found out that that was not a true story. That was written by a medical consultant on the show who fabricated the story of her own condition. And as such, they took care of that in the powers that be over at the network. But what they did do is make the cancer for Catherine Avery come back. And they're not saying anything about it, but her behavior in the last season has become highly erratic. And we're going to see in season 21, again, for all you Grey's Anatomy fans, it's tonight at 10 p.m. They moved it to 10 because of another show that is debuting, another medical show, which I will talk about in the fourth segment of this one. But the point is that we're going to see a total devolving of a primary character, which may or may not indicate a series finale, or it might just show that they're getting the show ready for the next generation of doctors or interns, as they call them. I have pretty much spent most of my time talking about Grey's Anatomy, but ironically, Private Practice, the spinoff, also dealt with infertility issues. It dealt with pediatric care. It dealt with mental health care, alternative treatments. There was an acupuncturist on staff, but yet it was short-lived because, again, all the individual lives on the show went their separate ways. Unlike a hospital system where you can bring in new medical talent, another real-world situation that, if you remember my show with Ben Lytle a couple of years ago, we are faced with a shortage of doctors, probably due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but more importantly, a lot of people are not as engaged in the medical training that's out there. It takes shows like Grey's Anatomy to keep that going. And I could say that the biggest inspiration for me about that show was making sure that not only do I advocate my own health crises that I've been going through, epilepsy, my father's prostate cancer, my mother's vertigo issues, and my cousin's Alzheimer's disease. So I kind of mirror what I see on the show. Again, I'm looking for the medical knowledge, not as much the drama, although it's entertaining. All right. Again, New Amsterdam, rather, based on New York. I could tell you the set was an actual hospital outside of Bellevue Hospital right here in the city in Manhattan. And I could tell you they use AI or their initial forms of AI in some of their films or in some of their episodes. There was one episode where they were dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic and a plane was crashing right on the East River. Literally, you could see my apartment building as the plane is crashing. I don't remember that scene ever being filmed. It was computer generated. But at least they were dealing with that plane crash and the survivors. I would have to say New Amsterdam is a show about emergency trauma, emergency crises, and what those doctors tend to do in that fight or flight situation, that ride or die situation. Quick thinking, quick solutions, and all to get them ready to go back into recovery, whether it's sending them to Bellevue or sending them to another hospital. Speaking of hospitals, I mentioned Gray Sloan Memorial for Grays. There is an actress on the show who plays Dr. Miranda Bailey. Her name is skipping me, is Chandra Wilson. She basically is a graduate of New York University, and NYU is famous for NYU Langone Health. I got to tell you honestly, from my dealings with NYU Langone Health for the last 5 years especially, I kind of think that maybe her own contributions to the show allowed the fictional Grace Sloan Memorial Hospital to mimic the teaching hospital system that NYU Langone is. And so, based on the quality of care that I've seen at NYU Langone, I can say if I was part of um, that fictional residency in Seattle, I would definitely go to Grace Sloan Memorial. All right, that's a little bit of my own commentary. I would highly recommend that to watch Grey's Anatomy's season premiere because it is going to be the indication of the direction of the program and the direction of that particular health crisis that was originally fictionalized without intention. And I guess the best things I can also say is that it takes brilliant minds and creative thinkers to come up with medical programming that is as accurate as possible. And I have to give credit to Shonda Rhimes for being able to do that, to still keep me engaged in particular, especially again, the COVID-19 season 17. That was awesome. I mean, I felt like I was involved in COVID with Meredith and the cast during that season. What else can I say? I guess we're ready for another break because anything else about those three shows, I'll probably end up thinking about it in section 4. So please stay tuned as I'm talking about inspiring medical shows right here on Frank About Health, both on talkradio.nyc and thanks out there to Logan, 2 minutes to break. I meant it this time. On talkradio.nyc and all of our social media. We'll be back in a few.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host a program, Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Hey everybody, and welcome back. Now this is the final section of Frank About Health. So mainly what I do during this time is I promote what's going on. First of all, I just wanted to say I hope you've enjoyed my little recap of inspirational medical shows. I know they were inspirational to me. And in the case of Chicago Med, that was inspirational to Karen. So I wanted to learn more about that, and I could see why. Obviously, you probably heard from section 3, my most inspiration is Grey's Anatomy. But I was also a hard, avid fan of MASH. I mean, the song is Suicide is Painless. And for a child to sing it, I mean, I was doing karaoke and stuff like that at the age of 10 or 12 or whenever I first saw it on CBS. But it wasn't about suicide. It was just basically talking about how when life is hard, especially during war, you just got to find a way to plug through it. And the characters on that show definitely made it happen. Or at least for 11 years, they made it happen. But it was only the beginning. A lot of shows today have been spun off to mimic certain aspects of MASH. I've seen it again with Grey's Anatomy. They've even narrated specific lines that were said by the lead characters, Hawkeye and BJ. So I can say that you have medical shows that are inspiring and at the same time leave a legacy. And that's basically why I'm saying that MASH, General Hospital, Grey's Anatomy in particular are the three that definitely are continuing to leave a legacy or have already left one. Now, the purpose of medical inspiration is not for everybody. I'm not trying to make everybody start watching all three networks and at the same time, or rather four networks, and at the same time start watching the streamers of back catalog of programming. That's only if you have a vested interest in it. You know, I would say whether you're in entertainment or whether you're in medical school or aspire to be a doctor of some sort, of the 9 shows that I quoted so far, probably 4 or 5 of them are worthy of giving you inspiration. Again, you might be inspired to do politics or to do show business directly. So some of those shows can help you with that. But if they're not for you, no worries. I'm just sharing what has inspired me. Now, I consider my people to be the people of talkradio.nyc. I have some targeted people that have worked with me on Frank About Health that I consider my people. I've mentioned Retha Gray. She's been on the show almost 10 times. There was Phyllis Quinlan, my co-host. There's now Karen Ross, who will be my co-host next week on our monthly show that we do at the beginning of every month. And simultaneously, there's Logan Pethel out there who has backed me up, not only on this show in particular because of the technology challenges, but also on an upcoming project that will be talking about the history and hopefully legacy that Frank About Health is trying to leave behind. Overall, all I could say is that medical shows are inspiring depending on your point of view. Again, during the pandemic, I was binge watching anything. In fact, I didn't even get into Grey's Anatomy until I first saw its spin-off, Private Practice. And I got into that after watching Scandal. So I was really not coming from a healthcare direction. I would have to say that COVID-19 was the healthcare direction that certainly has put me in the position that I'm now focused on. So I hope in that way I've been inspiring to you guys as well. Now I want to recap some of the screenshots by sharing the screen and doing what I can to emphasize what's motivating future episodes of Frank About Health based on that. So bear with me for a second. Logan, if you're there and you see me start to freeze, please feel free to reboot me. Okay. Now here are the title cards that I showed you. And in particular, this one here, Grey's Anatomy. I don't know if I can increase the size of it, but either way, you can see here that the two, Sandra Oh and Ellen Pompeo, were very inspirational in codifying the word my person. Today, on another show, totally unhealth related, I think it was Good Times. You know, I happened to be changing channels. I heard them say, "You're my person." So it's being used in popular culture today. At the same time, as I said earlier, it is going to be the season 21 premiere tonight at 10 o'clock on ABC and tomorrow on Hulu. Please be aware of it if you are a fan of Grey's Anatomy. Tonight, before Grey's Anatomy, is the debut of another show that I didn't yet talk about because I haven't yet been inspired. It is called Dr. Odyssey. It looks like a ship's doctor, like Love Boat, but I have an actual synopsis of what the show is about for any of you out there. Maybe I'm doing my free promo for tonight at 9 o'clock, the old Grey's Anatomy time slot, by the way. From the brilliant mind of Ryan Murphy comes high-octane procedural Dr. Odyssey. Max, played by Joshua Jackson, is the new onboard doctor for a luxury cruise ship where the staff works hard and plays harder. It's all hands on deck as Max and his small but mighty medical team navigate unique medical crises and each other. Well, that alone speaks that it's both drama and medical urgency. The other show that I mentioned earlier Million Little Things is basically going to be discussed a little bit next week in my show with Karen Ross. Next week, it is Cancer Awareness Month, pediatric cancer, breast cancer, any other types of cancer. Karen has already discussed with members of the American Cancer Society in Chicago to be on the show with us. I'm looking forward to that. It'll be, again, another influence that Karen has brought to Frank About Health by providing pretty much medical professionals to be on the show. And so I'm looking forward to that show. But I can say that, believe it or not, what inspired that episode was the fact that both of us, me and Karen, were avid fans of Million Little Things. So maybe that was one reason why I chose the topic of inspirational medical shows, to kind of give leeway and hints into what's going on next week. The other things that I wanted to say include that I've already come up with a title for my documentary, but it would be unfair to mention it because I want to wait for eventual snippets of it to be shown on Frank About Health. So we will wait for that maybe next week or the week after for that. And I will also say that I'm just grateful to everyone who has been supportive of being on Frank About Health. I could tell you, I've heard from Ben Lytle. He will be coming back on the show. I thought he was coming back in 2025, but he'll be coming back next month. I'll also have, as I mentioned earlier, the Karen Ross show with her next week. And we have a special guest who will be launching another show on talkradio.nyc, who is tentatively scheduled to be here on October 17th. So I'm populating future episodes of Frank About Health as we speak. And I'm also looking forward to the return of Phyllis Quinlan, who will be talking about what it's like for caregivers when they're going through burnout, which I am certainly one of them at this point. I can also say that doing Frank About Health is therapy for me. And as I said, the shows that I've covered tonight have been inspirational. I'm hoping Frank About Health is doing the same. You can find me every week on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. on our YouTube channel, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitch. And you can also find me on Apple Podcasts. When this show posts, it appears on Apple Podcasts the very next day. So hopefully I'm getting more viewers and more audience to work with me and eventually ask me more questions. I definitely want to be more interactive in the coming weeks. And overall, as far as our slate of shows on Talk Radio for the coming week, tomorrow we always begin with Philanthropy in Focus with Tommy D, and then always Friday with Steve Fry. And then on Tuesday, we have the Hard Skills. And then we have our new show. Logan, please tell me what it is. And Wednesday is not filled yet, but will be. And Thursday, after the Conscious Consultant Hour, and Power, Money. Well, Nourish the Soul is the Tuesday show. But Logan, Mind, Body, Health, and Politics. Okay. And then my episode with Karen on Frank About Health. Wow. I guess I did an earlier show than I expected. So I'm welcoming any questions out there. 3 minutes to ending. I'm still welcoming any questions out there. I hope you guys tune in tonight at 9 o'clock for Dr. Odyssey on ABC. And then right after, the season 21 premiere of Grey's Anatomy. And for all the other shows that I mentioned, if you can't find them on air, you could go to the different platforms out there and try to look for them. I hope that they inspire you out there to become an advocate, or to go to medical school, or to write a book on health, or to have your own podcast, or whatever it is. But the whole point of being in healthcare is to heal others and educate others and inspire others. Also, to find out the solutions to the problems that ail you, and to find them out the right way without the misinformation that sometimes even programs can provide. Overall, I'm kind of preaching right now, but I would have to say that I've been inspired all along in the last 3 years. And again, I am looking forward to inspire you all further. That all being said, so since it's 2 minutes to ending, I'm just going to sign off right now and say thank you for being here on this episode of Frank About Health. If any of you out there are actual fans of the shows that I've done or actually work for the networks or whatever, I hope I've done you guys justice by giving free promotion, especially for tonight's series premiere and season premiere on ABC. And I guess that's basically it. So, ladies and gentlemen, signing off now, and I'll be here next week. Thanks again. Good night.